What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fitness Simplified podcast. I am your host, Joe Anklam, and today's guest is Chris Diaz. This is actually part 2 of my podcast with Chris. In part 1, we discussed the benefits of outside accountability and support, the difference between online and in-person training, as well as what led Chris to reach out to me and hire myself as his own coach, even though he is a body transformation specialist himself. In this second half of the podcast, we discuss a little bit more personal side of Chris's life and his battle with cancer. In the short time that I've known Chris, I've really grown to admire his ability to overcome adversity. I think you will too feel the same way after this podcast. And I think given our current climate and state of being in the world right now, we could all use some perspective. If you do enjoy the podcast and you'd like to support further, please subscribe on whatever platform you're listening and feel free to screenshot and post to your Instagram story tagging me at Joe_Anklam to let me know you've enjoyed things and that you're listening. Thank you guys for the continued support. Please sit back and enjoy this podcast. No, for sure, dude. And what you were just mentioning there, as far as like your overall health and everything, and you mentioned a little bit before, everyone right now is obviously dealing with a lot of adversity and everything, just with everything going on. Everyone dealing with a little bit in all forms. Tell them a little bit more about the adversity you were dealing with in the last year, man, and kind of give everyone a little bit of perspective, because I think everyone can use it, and I think just what you have to say, man, and just what you went through is just kind of powerful right now, where people are like, okay, hey, sitting inside, it's not so bad, I can, and also finding a face that says, hey, I would have been one of those people you're helping by, not going out and hanging with everyone and anyone and everyone right now.
Yeah.
So fill them in, dude.
Yeah.
What was going on a year ago? Right about this time, right?
Yeah, actually, probably, what's the date? The 24th right now?
Yep.
I want to say about 2.5 weeks maybe would be a year. But man, it's felt like 10. What a year. So, what's next?
So what
May. So
yes, I was gonna say. So explain to them what was 2 weeks from now.
Okay, so in May, let's backtrack for a second.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the year, I was like, obviously trying to, I don't know, I was trying to like get leaner or something, whatever, the weather's getting warmer. And so I was just, I was training a lot. I mean, I was always training, but I was training for that specific goal. And I started noticing that whenever I would do basically most compounds, except for maybe like presses, because I was laying down already. But I whenever I was done with a set, I always felt just super lightheaded. And I was like, what's going on? And I went, I talked to a lot of people, tried to figure out, their take on it and what they thought. And just, I tried all sorts of things, vitamins, adding like Himalayan pink salt to my to my pre, and just
maybe
everything.
I'm dehydrated or yeah.
I just always thought it was something else, and I kind of just would just catch my breath and sit down for a second when I needed to and just try to continue my workout, but it would always come back and stuff like that. So it was really it got to the point, it was happening so much, it got to the point where I just half-assed all my workouts, because I was like, so now we can go back to the date about 2.5 weeks from now. So around this time last year, I was like, you know what, maybe it's my cardio. Maybe that just sucks. Like, because I was doing, a lot less cardio. I would just do like 15-minute walk or something on the treadmill. And I was like, I'm just gonna start running or doing HIIT or something and try to get my cardio up. So I got on the rower and I just only did about 5 minutes of just hit, like intervals. And I got up from that. I left, went home, felt fine. And later that night, a few hours later, I started feeling, I always describe it as, when you run outside in the cold and your chest, you can feel like when you breathe in, you get that like cold air and it just, right
totally.
after a run. So that's how it felt. So I was not too worried. I was just like, oh man, like I must have just crushed the cardio today or something. So I didn't think much of it. And when I woke up, I was having trouble breathing. Every time I would breathe in, I felt like a sharp pain right in the middle of my chest. And that was like, how many, I don't think I went to to urgent care right away either. It wasn't, I was kind of like, oh, maybe I just, pushed too hard or something. That's how I thought of it. So I was just trying everything I could to try to help that feel better, and that wasn't working. So my mom actually works at the hospital over here as a phlebotomist, but she had just got out of work. She goes in at some like 3:30 a.m. or something, and so she just got back from work. It was maybe 1:30 or something in the afternoon, and I told her, I was like, I might have chest pain when I breathe in, and she was like, all right, well, let's go to urgent care. She didn't even change. she was like, let's go to urgent care. We went there, and I don't know, the pain wasn't getting any better. So they did a EKG. They hooked me up to all that, and I actually became like cool, pale, diaphoretic. I was sweaty. I lost, color and stuff. And I don't know if it was because the actual issue or because I was so nervous and they kept telling me that I had to calm down so they could get an accurate reading. They like kept saying it. And I was like, it's like really hard to do that when you keep saying it. So I like almost passed out. I didn't pass out. I almost did. So I asked them if they could lay because I was sitting up when they did it. And I asked them if they could lay me back and get me like an ice pack and stuff. And they thought that was super weird. So they were like, you know what we want to do, we can't do here. So we're going to send you to the ER, which was across the street, thankfully. But yeah, I went in there and they take chest pain seriously. So just right away, just x-rays and all that stuff. It was like swamped there. It took a while, but yeah, I was in pain, but I was still, how I am now, just smiling, kind of just watching TV, hanging out with my mom. And so I wasn't like in that much pain, but it did hurt when I breathed in. So a doctor came in and he was like, so we looked at your x-ray and he said, there's a mass in your chest. The word for it, he goes, there's a mass in your chest and it's quite large. And I just started crying right there. I was like, of course there is. Like, holy shit. Just the way things were going at that time, I was like, of course there is. And I just started crying. My mom was trying to calm me down. And before I even knew what it was, like before I knew what they could do for me and everything, So I calmed down after a little while, as much as I could. And they just admitted me. I was in the hospital actually for like 2 days longer than I should have been because they wanted to do a biopsy, but apparently they don't. The hospital's like freaking closed down on weekends. I'm like, what? Like, what if people? Anyway, that's just another. So yeah, I was up there and I had to wait like a couple extra days because there was no one around to do the biopsy. But it was weird because I was it was funny because they color code the socks so the nurses can tell like who should be out of bed and stuff like that, who's like a fall risk patient, stuff like that. And I had on the yellow socks, which meant I was a fall risk, but those were the only socks they gave me. And once the nurses found out that I wasn't, they were like, it was so funny. They were like fighting over me because I was such an easy like patient. Yeah. I was just like, but yeah, you know, I kind of calmed down a little bit. I would still, you know, tear up when I thought about it and just like scared of what was to come and things like that. But I started feeling a little better with the breathing. The pain with the breathing maybe lasted maybe like a day and a half. So that kind of went away. Anyway, so went in for the biopsy, and that was also scary. But I mean, you know, I'm in the hospital. Whenever I'm in the hospital, I'm like scared. It's just weird being there. But yeah, so I got the results back, and I talked to one of the doctors, and he was this was, I don't know how many days after, but obviously the scan results aren't instant. So even just that time in between having to wait is like, I don't know what to compare it to. It just felt like forever. Mm-hmm. But I finally went into my appointment with the doctor, and he was like explaining everything to me. And he was like, you know, it's malignant. It's called a germ cell tumor. He was telling me that, you know, treatment is generally pretty successful, which obviously was good news. But, you know, there's still, you know, a possibility it might not go well. So I remember when he told me, I was like, at the time, not even fazed by it. Because I had already, like, the whole time I was in the hospital, I'm like, this shit is cancer. Like, I
the worst.
You know, yeah. I was like, with my fucking luck, man. Excuse me, I don't know if I should.
No, you can swear.
But that's how I felt at the time. That's how things were going for me at the time. But if you could imagine. But he told me I had to do, you know, chemo and that too. I was like, all right, let's do it.
Did you just start right away then, or how did that work?
So I started, I think, like, I don't know exactly how many weeks later. It was maybe like a couple. It was maybe 2 to 3, I want to say. I don't remember the exact dates. Honestly, that the whole thing is the whole last year feels like 10 years. So I'm like,
yeah.
But yeah, so he told me I needed that, and he said it was 4 cycles of chemo, and there's 20, I think it's 21 days I had off, and then on like the next day I started the next cycle. And so my infusions were 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 5 hours a day. And so it was
that's a lot.
I don't know a lot about different chemo treatments, but
that's
from what I was told,
that's a lot. That's like hard and heavy.
Yeah, I was told it was very intensive. And that was rough. So after the first week of it, I was like, I got this, you know? And then that first weekend, I was like, I don't know if I could do this. Like, holy crap. And people don't really understand. And I wouldn't wish for anyone to actually understand. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But, you know, people think it's kind of like, I don't know what to compare it to, but they think like, oh, you know, your body will get used to it and you'll bounce back each time better and better. It's like, no, with chemo, it gets worse and worse every cycle. So, yeah, so I met so many cool people there, like just so many strong people, people that have been doing it a lot longer than me. But from what I understand, I think I only met one other person. I met a lot of people. I only met one other person that had like infusion sessions longer than me. Like some people would be like you're here for how long?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be the youngest one in the room by far. And people would always look at me, but everyone was cool. Everyone was great. But yeah, the first cycle hit me, bounced back a little bit, and then it just got worse and worse, man. The weekends after are always the absolute worst. And once I got into my third cycle, maybe halfway through my second, actually. So halfway through my second is when I started getting nauseous when I showed up to the hospital, like, because I knew what was coming. So they have a medication for like every kind of nausea. It's like, I mean, none of them worked for me, but they were like, oh, you have, you're anxious about chemo, and so here's this, and it's like, whatever. So the third cycle was just, they have to like show you your bag with the chemical. And it's almost like my body like knew what was in there, because whenever they would show me the bag so I can read my name on it, I would always like
Throw up.
I didn't throw up. Actually, I don't think I ever threw up during chemo, which is, I don't know how, because there were some nights where I just really hate vomiting, so I do everything I can to like try not to. But
You're on the verge a lot. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, bad, like worse than ever in my life. But they would just being in that room, like the smells, everything was triggering like my nausea. It was getting really bad. So I tried continuing with fitness. My doctor actually, she told me, she was like, it's going to be hard, but don't become like a couch potato. You know what I mean? Try to do what you can. She was like, I don't recommend you go to the gym because my immune system was shot. I still went because I'm an idiot probably, but she said, but if you do go, wipe everything down, everything that you use or that you're going to use. Both. You should be doing both. But yeah, so I went for as long as I could. I still tried to keep my schedule, like 3 to 5 days a week, something like that. Whether I was there for half hour or longer, whatever. I tried to, because it's really good for your immune system, to just keep up with your fitness. But yeah, I tried, I don't know. I tried keeping up my workouts, and then there were some days I would just have to leave because I just felt like I was going to vomit just out of nowhere. It's so weird. And something that sucked the most, actually 2 things sucked the most. So a lot of things sucked, if you couldn't tell. But one thing I was actually really, really scared of, something that scared me even more than the diagnosis, was losing my hearing. So there's
Is it a side effect?
Yeah, so there's one of the chemicals is called cisplatin. I won't forget the name because I was like looking it up like crazy. And so usually in children, one of the side effects can be like, loss of hearing. And you don't normally see that in like older people. And I want to say after my second cycle, my doctor was like, you're not that old, so maybe that's why this is happening. And things started sounding, I always had trouble describing it. Not muffled.
Like
Things just sounded less. I don't know how to.
Like you almost had like your ears popped kind of feeling.
Kind of. I don't know.
Where
We'll go with
need to pop, where it's just like let everything's, and then you pop them and everything amplifies. You're like, whoa, who turned up the volume?
Maybe, kind of. All I know is that I was using my gym headphones, and they sounded like cheap dollar store headphones.
Okay.
So, yeah, one of the side effects is, your ears can ring, and then I got that too. I actually still have that to this day. So that hasn't gone away yet. If it does, it's one of the longest side effects to go away, but it can probably be permanent. I think mine is permanent. Like, my ears are ringing right now. They're always ringing. Actually, I hope you don't hear it, because that'd be super annoying, but I have a sound machine in my room. Because like complete silence is like, it drives me nuts.
Because that's amplified then. The ringing.
Yeah, my ears ring. Yeah, I can go through the day and I don't really notice it, but at night especially, they ring. They still ring. That's from the cisplatin. But yeah, so that was really scary, because I told her, I was like, I don't want to continue with what we're doing if I lose my hearing. And so she tried to calm me down a little bit. My doctor was super cool. She probably gave me like a little bit more time during our appointments than she should have. You know what I mean? Because she has a schedule to stick to, but
yeah.
she wanted to make sure that I was all right. But so that sucked a lot. The second thing was my taste just disappeared.
Like your taste buds get like fried or what?
It's just nothing had flavor except for water, which tastes like
iron.
Yes. Yeah. And so it was so weird, because the nurses all, they would all like kind of, well, I don't know, they'd always be proud when I walked in with like a water jug, because I was like, I got this shit, like, because you got to stay super hydrated. You should always be hydrated, but like even more so to just flush everything out. And it got to the point where I stopped drinking as much water as I should have.
Because it tasted horrible.
It just, it tasted so, I mean, I tried everything. I tried Mio. I tried just different things to try to flavor the water. And it just always like kind of, the underlying taste was always kind of the same. So it just made my third and fourth cycle that much harder. Because when you're dehydrated, all those effects, feeling sick and everything are just amplified. Mm-hmm. So after my first, like I said, my first cycle that weekend was hard. It was really hard. My second, third, and fourth, I spent more and more days in bed, like consecutively after the treatment was done. So it'd be like Monday through Friday is, I get my infusions done, and then that weekend I'd be in bed all weekend. My last cycle, my parents had a cruise scheduled, and I told them, I was like, you guys are going on that cruise. Mm-hmm. You're not staying home, like, for me. And thank God my very close friend, actually, we rent out the house next door, so he just took care of me. Mm-hmm. I was in bed. Oh, it feels like a blur. I must have been in bed, except for like getting up to use a bathroom or something. 5-6 days, like, straight. Just I just could not get up. It just kicked my ass. I don't know how. It's crazy. Just, I would show up and meet all these people that are going through the same thing as me, and they come in like just for work and stuff, and I'd walk in like a bum with like my flip-flops and just like I don't even know how they did that. You know what I mean? It was just crazy to me, but it kicked my ass. But it was worth it. I went for scans after my fourth cycle, like a few weeks later, and I could feel that it shrunk significantly. It shrunk a lot. So actually, it's still there. It's just there's no activity. So my doctors at this point think it's just scar tissue, and if that's the case, and since it's not like, I don't think I said this. It was the size of a grapefruit.
Okay.
So think of that. It was in front of my heart.
Wow.
Yes. So
that's how you could feel it.
Yeah. So whenever I worked out, your blood vessels, everything dilates. And I think that's what created the pressure in there. Or that's what, you know, they told me was their guess and where the pain was coming from and everything. So I could feel as I'm working out, because I did, you know, I kept going to the gym. I wasn't in as much pain each time. So I was like, it better be working because I'm feeling better. Like in my chest area.
Otherwise, it's the weirdest placebo effect ever.
Yeah, exactly. So I went and got my scans done, and she, what I love about my doctor is she knows that you've been waiting for the results for X amount of days, and like that's all you want to freaking hear. So she'll walk in and she won't even say hello.
She just says
she'll say the results, and then she says hello and everything. Because I'm like, that's
you don't want to sit there and be like, hey, well, you know, blah blah blah, I'm glad we got here today to figure out the results. It's just like, just fucking say it already, lady.
She was like so the result was, so I had a couple scans, and obviously they told me it shrunk, and I could feel that it shrunk and everything. But the one that I wanted to hear was that there was no activity there. And so she walked in the door and she goes, no activity. It showed no activity. That's it. That's all she said. And then we said hello. And that's what I love about her. I gave her a big hug. But yeah, so right now I actually have a scan next month. Yes, next month. So I'm going to keep getting follow-up scans, and that's just, you know, procedure. That's how it is. They keep checking up for a little while. And she was my oncologist, but the cardiothoracic surgeon, he, you know, I have appointments with him just to check up, see how things are, because he goes over the scans too. And he just says, I pretty much go there. It's so funny because I go there and I'm like, he could have just told me this on the phone, you know, because I sit down, he's like, all right, well, you're good. And that's it. But he tells me, he's like, you know, there's no real point to go in there and take it out with surgery. Because right now it looks like scar tissue. It shrunk significantly and there's no activity. He said, but you know, if one of your scans shows even like a kernel of activity or anything, like we'll go in there and we'll just get it out.
But it's like not doing that invasive sort of procedure if not needed.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Anytime, why not? Why do surgery if you don't have to? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So I was like, it's weird. I kind of want it out, but also don't want to like do surgery if I don't have to. You know what I mean? So, but the scans are looking good, and yeah, I'm happy. It was an experience I wish on nobody.
Yeah. No, that's crazy, man. When you told me about that, I mean, I'd followed you for a while and we were friends on Facebook and I'd seen some of your posts and stuff, but until I think you told me the last time we were talking on the phone, you kind of told me a little bit about that. And I've learned more just in this conversation now than I had, but I think I told you that just cancer in general is kind of, unfortunately, kind of hits close to home. My mom's a breast cancer survivor. My aunt's a breast cancer survivor. Literally two of my best friends have lost one of their moms and dad to lung cancer. And then actually one of my, tomorrow my buddy, one of my really good friends is supposed to get married, believe it or not. And that's not happening. But his fiance, one of her really good friends, one of her best friends, actually has breast cancer right now. So another young person kind of, you know, going through something that not a lot of people our age can relate to at all, you know? So, yeah, I think, you know, I appreciate you talking about this, man, because I think, you know, people who are listening to this, although it's maybe not like, oh yeah, it's fun to listen to, it's important. It gives you the utmost perspective, you know, and even myself, you know, where you're kind of take things for granted or just like little things, like you said, you know, getting out of bed and like, especially right now, I think that's very easy to do. You know, we all want our normalcy back and all that sort of thing. It's like, dude, you wanted your normalcy back more than anything. Like at that point, you know, like
I don't want to sound selfish because this pandemic is happening to all of us, but it's like my last summer was it was chemo. Yeah. I didn't have a summer. And that's like, I
perspective.
hate the cold. I hate it. I hate the cold. I hate winter. I hate all those other months. I love summer, and I didn't have one, and now it's like I was looking forward to having one, and now this, and it's crazy. But obviously I want normalcy back. Everyone does, but I also, like, if this all happened a few months earlier, I think like only 3 or 4 months earlier, I would be high risk. I would have been someone that was high risk. I had to wear, I forgot what it was called, this little thing on my arm that would inject me at intervals to try to keep my white blood cell count up, because my immune system was, it was shot from the chemo, and all those people that I met were in the same boat. So I know, just like, stay home so we can be done. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people, and you can't just tell by looking at them that their, immune system is not, it may not be the best, right now. So
I give you credit, man, because if I was you, I'd be posting all over the place. I'd be like, you motherfuckers are worried about sitting at home right now. I was sitting at home, not, I couldn't even go outside, I couldn't even do like the things that I wanted to do at a normal pace. And you're worried about, you can go still walk, you can go still do everything, you still feel good, you can still work out. And like, I don't know, that's the raw form perspective. I'd be shoving that in people's faces. Like, you think you got it bad right now? I was the only one quarantined last summer. Like,
exactly.
Basically, like,
I mean,
for real though, like, and not even quarantined to the point where you're like, oh, you can't leave your house. It's like, you literally physically don't feel like you want to. Like,
exactly. So obviously I could go places, and I still did some days, but as chemo went on, it was like just bed all the time. All the time. And I didn't even go. I mean, you've seen the pictures of, my head, but that was like, I had a beanie on all the time. I just felt like I looked funny.
Yeah.
When I shaved my head, I just, that sucked too. When it started falling out, man, that was a shitty feeling. The first time you start seeing it come out in the shower, just like they do in the movies and the shows and stuff, it's exactly like that. It just comes out in clumps, man. It's it just kind of got to the point where, like, you try not to touch it, and you're like, I'm gonna make it last as long as I can, but
and it just happens.
I mean, you're laying in bed, you get up, there's hair on the pillow. You kind of just like get it over with, So that was another thing, but yeah. No. I mean, the list of side effects, like possible side effects, was like a freaking like booklet.
Encyclopedia,
yeah. I was like, holy crap, is this worth it? But yeah, so it's definitely scary.
I hear you, dude. Well, yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, especially with the hair falling out thing, that's just got to be a surreal thing. Like I said, my best friend's fiance's good friend, she actually posted kind of that same thing when it was like everything was kind of falling out, and like not that it's any more or less significant, but like especially like a girl with really long hair, like it's just like, I can't even imagine, and just in general, like seeing that, like, that surreal feeling. But it's actually really funny. Hopefully she ever listens to this. But it's like the TikTok theme where like it's like the Drake song, like Flip the Switch, and they like, it's like a couple, and they like turn the lights off, and like, so she did it, and she had her like wig on and like her like a hat on it, like looking really nice, and then she flipped the switch and like took it off, and so she was just bald, and like she was like dancing, and like, I'm like, you're the best, like that, that's like, so like, it's just like, so it's empowering, there's no other way to put it, it's like, like, good for you, like, so owning it. But it's, I don't know, man, it's crazy. I don't know, I think it's, like I said, there's really no silver lining to it other than the perspective from it, especially you. I think that's the biggest silver lining. Like, it's like with this, for instance, everyone dealing with this, you're just like, well, could be worse, guys. Like, could be way worse.
Exactly. I feel like I was always the person that would say that kind of stuff. Oh, it could be worse. And I always tried to be, I feel like I thought I was empathetic and everything. And, I was, but this just like all of that just tenfold. You know what I mean? I just have a different outlook on everything now.
It's like you wish you could harness that and put that in someone without having to go through the negativity of it, the negatives of it. But it's obviously that's just not, that's the unfortunate nature of life. Because even me sitting here wanting to wish that I could feel that same level in that realm, not obviously, you know, don't get it twisted. Like obviously don't wish that upon anyone, but what the perspective you gain from that, you know, even with it being my mom or being my best friends and like literally people that I knew, you know, their parents that like one of my best friends, it was my baseball coach for years, you know, like, so I knew him very well, but it's like, it's still not the same when it's you living that, like what you were describing there when you were talking about how, you know, the fact of, if I don't want to do this if I can't hear after this, you know, like things like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know, your mind's kind of like just going through these different things that you never really have ever even began to think about, you know, this weighing of odds of like, oh, well, I could live and this could help me. Or, you know, this could be something where this actually might hinder my ability for one of my senses to be able to function. It's like, well, that's a great scale to be weighing the odds of, you know what I mean? And it's just like, and you already know this, but it's just like, you know, hearing that sometimes, and it's just unfathomable for a lot of people. And there's certain people that will not even be listening to this point because they don't want to feel those feelings. And I think that's a shame, because it's like, I get it, but it's also such a big driver, I think, if you do harness it in the right way to learn and say, hey, this is such a fragile life.
It's so weird. Like, now that you bring that up, I don't know. Followers, I mean, I never really, you know, defined my worth by my following or anything, but I never lost as many followers as when I started posting about my diagnosis.
Really?
Yes.
Because people didn't want to see it. It was like negativity.
And even when I was like being positive about it and showing people that I was like still getting out of bed and just trying to like just put a positive spin on it, people were just and like, good riddance. Yeah. But that's also like, why are people like that? You know, it's crazy. But no, I never lost that up. I was gonna say, because I get it. Like, I get where they're coming from, but also I don't get it because it's just like, that's, you know, like, I don't know. It's like, it's like I almost am curious at what their psyche was going through at that moment to make them do that, you know? Because it's one thing to be like, you know, think of it, or maybe just like swipe off it or something, but like to go through the act of like unfollowing someone because you're just like, oh my gosh, like what, you know, what is it? Like, does it make them scared? Does it make them, you know, which, I mean, I could not tell you, but that should be there. You know, that level of paranoia, I think, is good because it makes you realize that you're just one little, you know, infinite, you know, you're just this little minute being and this big, massive, vast thing, you know. And it's not to sell yourself short or anything by any means, but it's just like to really value that. And I really, like I said, I think there's no way to have that value unless there's certain things that happen in your existence, you know, that can give you that perspective. And there's few things like that, like, you know, where it's like, wow. Yeah, I don't know. I just remember, I don't know. I was very surprised at that, but also like, do I want those people, you know, following me? Exactly. They don't care about me anyways. It was surprising for sure. But that bothered me for like 60 seconds, and then I was like, wait a second. Fuck them, yeah. The people that are around care more anyways. Those are the people I want. Yeah. True colors are shown. Yeah, that just, the whole experience, you know, you learn who is, obviously people are busy, but you know, you learn who's really there. And it was, I don't know, definitely a lot more empathetic. I try not to take things for granted like I might have been. Yeah, I mean, the experience was awful, but I think what I got from it, you know, what's the word? I don't want to say worth it because I don't want to. It was good. What I got, good came from it. Yeah, like it was everything culminating to where it is now. Like I said, I think there's always a silver lining to it of some kind. I don't like that you can carry. exactly. I don't, stress about like little crap anymore, and things out of my control. And I don't know, you figure out what's really important. And there's a lot of stuff that might have been before all that, and it's just like after the experience, you're just like, it wasn't really that important. You know what I mean? That's what. Yeah. So.
No, dude, I think this is really powerful. I think this is, like I said, something that a lot of people need to listen to right now, because I think maybe deep down you might know it, but there's always a situation that could be much worse than it is. And no, I think our stresses sometimes, it's like I think a very good analogy is what we're dealing with right now, and like a lot of these people who like a for instance, like social justice warriors, these people are just like, really, like, it's like there was nothing else for a lot of people. And I'm not trying to say, that's a whole other topic, but it's like, there's so many things that people are just overly invested in, right? Because there isn't anything for them to worry about. And it's like, I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say, where it's like, there's so much stress that could be way, way worse than what we actually are dealing with. And I think that's, goes along with what you're saying. Don't sweat the small stuff so much, because it could be so much worse. And I think now everyone's dealing with this huge pandemic, and now everyone's freaking out about that. And you kind of see these weird little things that, were big problems before, and not really being there anymore. I don't know. It's just like perspective again, but yeah, I don't know.
No, I know what you mean for sure. Yeah, I'm trying to think of.
There's like a vacuum. You know what I mean? Like a vacuum effect. It's like, if there's nothing to worry about, you find that little stuff to worry about. Like 200,000 years ago, when we were worried about what we were going to eat next, being eaten by animals, all these other things, our anxieties and stresses were based off of that, and our instincts were created around that. And that's evolution for you. But it's like now, we have to find all these little things. And it's like when people are dealing with real problems, like, it's like, dude, you deal with freaking cancer. It's like, damn, that's something to joke around about. But these people are like, well, I can't go get my hair cut right now. It's just like, dude, just be glad you have hair that's up to a point where you're unhappy with it, right? Like, I don't know, just for one example. But
I always told, especially after this, I tell my clients, and I've made posts about it and stuff, and I just try to tell people, like, you don't have to, you get to, you know what I mean? And try to, like, start rewording that. Like, there's a lot of things you think you have to do. You have to go to work. You have to go to the gym. You have to do all this. Like, no, you get to do that. So I try to, I've definitely made a few posts about that, but I try to let people know, just like,
oh, I love that.
Yeah. It's, definitely thought about that when I think, I did. I made a post during treatment about that, because I was like, Stockholm. and there's a lot of things people complain about. And then, like, right now, I'm sure, a lot of people that were out of work, or, they were complaining that they had to go to work. So.
Yeah, exactly. Karma smacks you right in the face sometimes. Right?
Yeah. So I try to apply that to a lot of things now. Even like, I had I had a friend that he would do his cardio because he would think about that.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't have to do cardio. I get to, like, I still, I have my legs. I have, some people don't even have that. To just, there's always, yeah.
I said that I made a video right when this was all going down, and I went for a run, and it was kind of like right after everything was already kind of like, it was pretty freaky out. Like, I actually came home from a trip early in the middle of March from Colorado, actually, for my buddy's bachelor party. I came home early because of everything, and I was like running, and like I got done with my run, and I was just kind of thinking about everything, and I was like, wow, I've really never been more grateful to be out of breath and like be breathing and like have deep breaths and like feel that, like, because there's people drowning in their own mucus from this crazy disease that we're dealing with, and it's just like, holy shit, like that's gnarly, like that's intense, like when you think about it. But yeah, and then it makes you think like, wow, I'm grateful that I can go out right now and make myself get out of breath and run, a couple of miles. And it's just like, you don't even think about that. That was actually one thing when I first started running more consistently, because I never been like a runner. I pole vaulted when I did track in high school. I ran like most was like 800, 800s, 2 laps around the track for anyone wondering. I never ran like miles, right? I was never a long distance guy. I was dating this girl at the time, and she used to run cross country. And so we would start running. And of course I'm like, I'm trying to get brownie points. So I'm like, yeah, I'll come, like don't even have like running shoes or anything. But she said something to me that was like, it stuck with me. And she's like, I don't think there's not even the majority, because that's definitely the case, but like, I think there's like a small minority of people that could actually just step out their door and go run for 20 minutes, not super fast, not like, and I was just like, you're right. Like, you were really right. And I was probably one of them before that happened, or at least it would have been a brutal 20 minutes. But I was like, that's key. And like, ever since, before that, I was always the meathead guy. I don't need cardio. Like, that's just stupid, but I think there's, you need that capacity. And I think that's, that perspective of health versus just, these superficial goals a lot of times is interesting. But yeah, and just being grateful for it, like, or going for a walk, like, oh, it's stupid. Why do I need to take a 5-10 minute walk,
Yeah.
So, but I think this was good, dude. I actually think this will probably be the second part. I'll probably break this up into 2 parts, because this is so good in terms of both the, if you didn't listen to part 1, just informative and that sort of thing, but also, I don't even know if you've ever talked about your journey this in depth. Have you?
No, not really. No.
I mean, other than to like your family and friends and stuff like that, if someone asks, obviously, but
I mean, maybe like a couple friends,
Mhm.
but my family they were there the whole time, so
it.
they knew, and I was probably I would always apologize when I started feeling better, but I was probably a jerk to them in the middle of it.
That's understandable, man.
So, but
Definitely understandable. You're dealing with a lot emotionally, mentally, physically, all the above. So, well, no, like I said, dude, honestly, Chris, thank you for talking about this, dude, because I think, there's no question that, I mean, I really don't know, it's anything vulnerable like that is not easy to open up about, but I think it's definitely a positive, in terms of people hearing that, right, and gaining that some perspective. Hopefully, at least a little bit, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, good.
But no, this was fun, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, no worries. We'll have you back on, because I think there's a lot of good insight we can talk about as far as, coaching tips and different topics there that, maybe commonalities with our clients and stuff, and stuff that people can really benefit from. But yeah, if you guys are still listening, and we threw in the video component today, hopefully if you're watching on YouTube, or if you are listening just the audio only version, check it out on YouTube if you want to. I'm going to try to do that more often if people are cool with it. So thankfully Chris was, but yeah, so if you guys are listening, like I said, still thank you, and make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss any episodes, and give the podcast a like. And yeah, thank you again. Do you have anything else to say to the people, a final message?
I hope to be back.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, you will be. And I hope that's multiple connotations there, because it's like, we hope to be back to normal too, right? Back to the dream. Right?
Yeah, right.
Multiple. It's like the good old Terminator. I'll be back. You don't know what I'm talking about, but all the above.
Stay in so I can like go out. Stay in so you can go out.
Exactly.
That's yeah.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you guys, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.